Hi everyone, Patricia Worby, Alchemy Therapies, My Emotional Audit, and now the Emotional Masterclass. And what I wanted to talk to you about today is what I've been up to this week and how even in the most unusual situations, you can find something extraordinary. Um, some of you may know I've been exploring the idea of video advertising. I want to kind of get my message out there in a lot bigger way. I want to try and get out from behind the therapist's couch, as it were, and start to raise awareness of some of these techniques and tools that I do to help people with attachment wounds. And in order to do that, I have to break free of the idea of one-to-one working and start to attract people who don't know anything about me. And that is the basis of advertising. It's about selling what you know. It doesn't have to be salesy. It can be done in ways that really emotionally connect with people. So I have signed up for various newsletters. I'm on various groups now where I'm getting mentoring and training. And a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, a conference popped into my inbox, the VidTao conference, which is an organization called vidtao.com, and they promote a free tool which enables you to analyze the top selling ads in your genre, and thus you can kind of make comparisons and take what works, so it's really a tool to help people understand what helps sell different things to different people. So imagine my surprise, really, to be invited to the conference as a bursary acceptor, because I basically told the organisers what I was involved with and what I want to be doing, and they offered me a bursary to go, which was fantastic. I could only attend one day of the 2-day event, unfortunately, because there was a rail strike in the UK on the second day, and I was reliant on the train to get there. So I only went to one day, which I'm very sad about, but the one day, wow. And I want to tell you a little bit about what happened there, because it was quite extraordinary, really, and both good and bad. So it's going to be a warts and all kind of review, really. Well, it's obviously the first time they've ever run a live event. So maybe it's better to call it a live event than a conference, but it's certainly obviously attracting people from the advertising industry, advertising media. There's all different types of roles in advertising. I knew nothing about this, but I'm beginning to learn. There's their own jargon. So there were copywriters, people who are like sales agents, people who kind of run agencies, people who create videos, and so they're more techie. A vast array of different roles, actually, but largely male. When I went, I was one of a few females in the room. I'd say there were possibly between 150, 180 people there. Difficult to estimate completely, but maybe, yeah, 10, 20 women, something like that. So it was very male dominated. It's very young, generally, a very youthful audience. So in their 20s, 30s mostly. And so as a middle-aged woman, I was certainly out on a limb, which was extraordinary in itself, because I'm used to going to conferences where I'm just, one of many, usually female, middle-aged women. And I sat at the back and I listened to the first speaker, who was somebody very famous in the ad world, swear his way through his presentation. Very extraordinary language. I was quite taken aback. Not that I'm a prude, but it was different to what I'm used to hearing. It was hard to hear, actually, because there was a lot of reverb in the room, but his message was basically you can sell anything to anyone, and he's got the ideal way of doing that. It was quite macho, to be fair. It seemed to be enjoyed by the audience, I guess because it's speaking their language. I don't know. I'd hope not. But anyway, the guy seemed to know what he was doing. I'm not going to name him. I don't think that's fair because I don't know anything about him. But yeah, as I say, the language was sort of just every other word almost. And I thought then, is there a paucity of language here that one has to rely on swear words the whole time? So that was number one. The second one and the third were quite interesting. There's lots of information in there. I took lots of notes. I was quite surprised by, yeah, some of the kind of depth that people go into to understand the framework of selling, you know, and what the opportunities are to create innovation and an outside the box kind of way of thinking. So one of the speakers was talking about jokes, comedy to sell, and how difficult that is, which I can imagine. Don't think I'll be using comedy in what I do. Another was talking about, yeah, the sort of what's overvalued and undervalued in your business, and that's what he kind of, when he's asked to go in, he kind of thinks outside the box in that way and looks at things in a very innovative way. And he said it's limitless, it's based on your imagination, and there are no rules. And then we had lunch. I took a picture of the refreshment offering because I really couldn't believe what was on offer. I don't know what I expected. I guess I expected at least coffee and tea, plus a few snacks. And there were a few snacks, but there was also loads and loads of caffeinated, carbonated drinks, Red Bull, Monster, I think it's called, bottles of water too, but no coffee, no tea, and just these piles of crappy stuff that, you know, as a holistic practitioner, I was just like, oh my God, this is a heart attack 20 years on, you know, for all these young men. So I felt a bit out of water, fish out of water there. But I did manage to have a nice lunch. It was in Oxford in the UK, which is a beautiful university city. So I managed to find a nice lunch and met a client, ex-client of mine, who's recovered from chronic fatigue quite spectacularly. You'll be seeing more of her because I'm interviewing her in the week. And so that was lovely. And then after lunch, always after lunch is a difficult slot for anybody to fill, isn't it? It's called the graveyard slot because everyone's kind of eaten, well, in this case, they haven't eaten much, or they're hyper on their caffeinated beverages. But anyway, was not prepared for what I received after lunch, which was Paris Lampropoulos, I think his name is. Just going to look him up. Lampropoulos, yes, who is a copywriter. He's an older guy, my age probably, and he started off by saying selling is a relationship, and I thought, that's interesting because I am interested in relationships. And he said, so that people can feel better about themselves, that's what you're doing. You're selling them something to make them feel better about yourself. And then he said, we are all wounded children in adult bodies. Now he had my attention. And he referred to a book called Reinventing Your Life, which I'm going to buy, by Dr. Jeffrey Young. Now, I was aware of schema therapy. I've come across it. I don't know much about it. I certainly didn't expect to learn about schema therapy in a talk on advertising, but that is what happened. Because what Paris has done is he's sort of taken I think there are 18 schemas. I think he took 10 out of the 18. What a schema is a pattern. It's a pattern of beliefs about the world that we operate unconsciously. And it's very linked to attachment theory. And I've done a lot of presentations on attachment theory, but attachment is about your bonding with your parent in the early years of your life, which landscapes your brain and the way you perceive the world. Now, schema therapy takes it a little bit further, and it sort of describes the different kind of groupings of the way we see the world. And so I just want to give you some idea of this. Now, bear in mind, Paris is a copywriter, so he writes to these different schemas. So he knows how to sell you anything based on what your dominant schema is. And so his most successful pieces are about writing to the wounds in us. Can you imagine how powerful that is? Right. So number one schema is abandonment, lack of control. And that says, please don't leave me. I definitely can resonate with that one. I definitely have that. He asked for a show of hands. He said, you know, how many of you would say you resonate with that? And about, 20% of people put their hand up. And he said, you guys, very brave, well done for admitting that. And the rest of you, you're full of shit, which I thought was great. So he actually thinks most of us have an abandonment schema, and he's probably right to some extent. I mean, obviously, these are not set in stone, and they're not one size fits all. They vary in terms of their depth or, the amount we hold on to. So some people have a very light abandonment schema. It's not the dominant one, and other people it's their dominant and main focus in their life, and it really affects their relationships, as you can imagine, and therefore it affects what they purchase and how they kind of run their life. So you can write to that. You can say things like, I'll be with you all the way. I thought that was so good, because I do say that to people. I say, you work with me, I'm with you all the way. I'm in the pit with you. I work with you to find your solution, blah, blah, blah. Hadn't realized I was selling to that schema. I hadn't really kind of thought about it. I just thought it sounded good because it helps people feel safe, which is so important. Now you talked about mistrust, which is the second one. That your basic belief system is that people can't be trusted. And so headlines to talk to that schema would be lies, 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 and the best way to get revenge is to survive. And then I was thinking about a book that was written on trauma by a colleague of mine, Carolyn Spring, which was Recovery is My Revenge. That was her title. And I was thinking, oh my God, whether she knew about schema therapy, I expect she did because she's done a lot of stuff on psychology. But no wonder it did so well, because it's a great title. And I thought, well, when I created my book title, I was just given the title. I didn't really understand it. Mine was The Scar That Won't Heal. It doesn't particularly sell anything because it's just a description, but it is a scar. A scar is a wound. And Paris actually mentioned the scar, these wounds as a scar. And I was just so excited to realize this stuff underlies everything. So he showed us a few of his copywriting successes that talk to that, and things like, you could give a headline that was something like, this new study proves X, Y, and Z, or you could say, the FDA ban that set medicine back 100 years, and it was the same article with a different title, and it outsold the initial one, 100 times or something, because it suggested that you cannot trust the powers that be. And I was thinking then about some of the other podcasts I've done on tyranny, the book on tyranny, and how the powers that be can't be trusted. So, and why, because they haven't got your best interests at heart. They're all about subjugation. They're all about conformity and serving their own interests, which is power and wealth. Not for you, for them. So I thought that was great. He talked about how you can, manipulate or use these different approaches. This one was great. So one of the other schemas is dependence, okay? And the problem with a dependent schema is you're unable to handle everyday life. And therefore, what you're saying is, I need you to tell me what to do. And he used some examples from cults, of which there are many. Some are obvious, some are not. I won't name them, but in certain cults, you've got to have, number one, you've got to have a superpower, right? You've got to have something that sets you above everyone else. You've got to have an origin story. You've got to have an idea of how this came to be. You've got to have special language. And I was thinking of, oh my goodness, apart from the one he was talking about, which I shan't name for reasons I don't want to get banned on YouTube, but there are others that I know of that operate, that I've been very closely involved with, where you have a special language which delineates you as separate from unenlightened people. And you have an ascension model. In other words, you have a structure in which you start at the bottom and you increase and increase and increase. And then I was thinking of MLM as well, multi-level marketing, which is rife. If you thought the pyramid selling idea was over, you should look to some aspects of the crypto market right now. It's alive and kicking. And not just crypto, but all sorts of investment schemes. So it has an ascension model, and it has special language, and it has an origin. Oh my God. that's a worry, because I'm involved in some of those things, not on the MLM side, but I have investments. And then vulnerability is another schema. The world is an unsafe place. All right, if you have that schema, you really got to talk to the gloom and doom market, you know, the end of America or the end of the dollar. And something like that popped into my inbox today, actually, about the end of real money. And, you know, we're going to get digital money, and that's going to be manipulated by government, and they're going to control everything about you. They can just switch off your money and make you purchase certain things and not others. And very much a doom and gloom approach. Deprivation. I never get what I need. And again, I can kind of feel that that one is resonating with me. Your need for love will never be met. You feel cheated. Okay, so you never get what you need. That also maps over to an anxious, ambivalent attachment style, actually. And to sell to that group, you use scarcity. Right? So here's another thing that you do is you put a timer on a page. How often have you seen that, right? This offer's going to run out in tick, 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 you know, however long. My goodness, that's a common one. So I'm never going to get my needs met. I have to have this thing. It's a really strong driver. What about social exclusion? I don't belong. That is the schema you're running. I don't belong. Again, something I can resonate with in my past. How do you sell to those groups? You create a mastermind. Oh my God, I'm doing that. Okay, I'm creating a mastermind. I didn't realize I was selling to a schema. I just thought the mastermind sounded like a great idea. Because you give people information that most people don't have. All right, so you answer to the fact that they don't belong. You give them a sense of belonging. They're in the cool crowd. Yeah, they get to be one of the cool kids, he said, for the first time in their life. And he did another straw poll on that and see how many people in the room felt they were, as children, part of the cool club. I think there was one person in the room who said they were part of the cool club growing up. All of the rest of us were like, we were the nerds, because, you know, we grew up believing we had to learn stuff to survive, and we knuckled down. We got involved in technology for whatever reason. So so that was interesting. And failure is another schema. I am inadequate. Okay. So how do you write to that? You say why X is costing you a certain amount and how to fix it. You answer that, you are going to sell to those people, you know, and you'll see that all over the internet. You know, this is costing you. We've got a cost of living crisis at the moment. You know, people are being instructed how to save on energy bills and, you know, travel, and, you know, we're trying to switch people over to electric because we're told that it's cheaper and so on. That's not the whole picture, of course, because the batteries and the minerals involved in producing them are highly destructive of the environment. So it might save you money, but possibly kill the planet. So there were 2 or 3 others that I thought were really interesting, but I'll save those for another video, I think, just to keep this short and sweet. But it was an extraordinary day, a bit overwhelming in some ways, and I learned a lot about advertising, which I had never encountered before. And I'm in the middle of putting up a video which will hopefully go live sometime this autumn, which will bring in hopefully new people. So I'm having to perform in front of the camera and get the lighting right, and learn my lines in a way that sounds unscripted, even though it is scripted. So I'm having to go outside my comfort zone big time, because I'm not used to it at all. I'm a quiet practitioner who works one-to-one mostly, but you cannot make change in the world unless you're prepared to stand up for what you believe in. And I truly believe that it's time for this world to heal our wounds, because our wounded people create more woundedness in the world, and we have to stop you know, sacrificing our world to fit this insatiable appetite, which, by the way, is another schema, which I'll come on to in part 2. Anyway, take care of you. Bye for now.